Well, it's another day in paradise, but look, I just want to give you a quick update on what's happening. There's a couple of things that have been confusing a lot of people, myself included. So here's where we start. Number one, the vaccinations. As a lot of people have now said, the situation has reverted back to domestic only travel, require a third booster shot. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to bring it in to international travel if it spreads, or if the COVID situation gets as bad as it is, say up in Jakarta and places like that. But being a pretty outdoorsy sort of place, Bali is less likely to have problems, and being isolated on an island a little bit easier to control. So with the G20 summit coming up in a couple of months' time, there are thousands of people here already upgrading infrastructure. There are police in training, there are security forces, there are media. There's so much happening with that G20 summit that the world is going to be watching Bali, and I guarantee they'll do everything they can to protect that summit by trying to prevent the spread of COVID between now and then. So that's number one priority for the government right now, is to make sure Bali is safe, which is good for us, because if you're here in Bali, or if you want to come to Bali and you're protected and you don't get COVID, you know it's a pretty safe place to come, because the chance of getting it's less. So because of that, they've introduced the mask mandate again, outdoor areas, including open spaces, including riding bikes and scooters up and down the road, in indoor spaces, indoor public spaces as well, and shops and shopping malls and schools and all that sort of stuff. So how do you get away with not wearing a mask? Well, right now I'm having a beer. I know you find it very hard to believe, because I never drink beer. Well, occasionally. But the reason I drink it is because while you're eating or drinking, you have to wear a mask. So you walk around with a beer in your hand, or a drink bottle. It could be water. It doesn't have to be beer. But if you're having a drink or a feed, having a swim, something like that, look, they're pretty relaxed. At the moment, it's very much a precautionary measure. But if I'm looking here at the beach, I can see a good few people over my shoulder there. I don't want to point them out, get them in trouble, but not one of them is wearing a mask. Not even a chin mask like this one. But I'm having a drink, so that's okay. So guys, look, they're being careful, they're being cautious, they're trying to make sure they can lessen the impact that COVID might have. There is around about somewhere between 50 and 100 cases a day being recorded here in Bali of COVID, which is fairly manageable. I don't think there's been many deaths in the last few days. I've been keeping an eye on the stats, but it's hard to get an accurate reading. They're not testing people for COVID, but if you present with symptoms, then they test you. Well, then that's how you get in to become a statistic. So it's not like they have mass testing centres and they're out there really trying to find it, but they are doing their best to try to make sure if they do find it, they can isolate it, clear it up, clean it up, whatever, get rid of it. So masks are compulsory in public spaces, outdoors and indoors, and damn inconvenient, because it's bloody hot breathing your own breath in all day in a hot climate with a mask. But that's what you got to do. Okay, now that situation will stay fluid until such time as they understand what's happening with this next wave of COVID. It's happening all around the world. It's not just Bali. Don't pick on Bali. It's just that everyone wants to come here and relax. So like I say, there's a few hundred people I can see right now at the beach, and not a single person is wearing a mask. They're all just kicking back in the sun and relaxing. We know that vitamin D and sunlight kills the virus off, so shouldn't be a big problem. Now here's the kicker: foot and mouth disease. A lot of people asking me what the hell is going on. Is Australia going to ban travel to Bali because of foot and mouth disease? No, they're not. At this point in time, the Australian Minister for Primary Production, who's got a great first name, Muzza, has said there is no opportunity, or no intention at this point in time to ban travel to Bali. There are some heightened security precautions. Now, it's quite interesting. The foot and mouth disease bug can stay on shoes and solid objects for up to, I think it was 11 days or so. It was quite a long time. So washing shoes and stuff like that isn't actually that successful in controlling it, and especially because a lot of people, when they're walking around here in Bali, are wearing thongs, jandals, slippers, flip-flops, whatever you want to call them, but they're not necessarily wearing covered shoes. Now, because the virility of this bug is so strong, you can be walking down the street after a cow's pooed on the street, or after another cloven hoof, like a goat or a sheep or something, has been past there that's carrying the disease, and you can step in its poo and pick it up, and it could get on your shoes or your thongs. It could even theoretically get on your feet. And here's the problem: they can't decontaminate footwear when 90% of the people wearing any footwear in Bali are wearing thongs, which would mean they'd have to decontaminate your feet, and the chemicals that they would require to do that are actually quite dangerous. So what they're saying, it's nearly impossible to do it. They may bring in scrubbing of boots and shoes, but it's problematic. They're actually more concerned about it coming in from other things like meat and dairy products coming into the country. Now, if you eat meat from a contaminated cow, you don't get sick, so don't panic. You're not going to come over here and all start getting foot and mouth disease and anything like that. But they're concerned about it getting into the Australian livestock industry and costing billions and billions of dollars in vaccinations and all the secure biosecurity measures they're going to need to try to eradicate it. It is a problem. It's a bit of a hassle. For God's sake, make sure when you come back from Bali that anything you have that you're not worried about or you're not sure about, you declare it. Do not take meat products of any sort back. Do not take dairy products, cheeses. I think even things like mayonnaise and stuff, which has got eggs in it. They are going to be very, very on the case for people coming back from Bali, just to make sure. Now, you can take a heap of stuff back. You can take wood stuff back. You can take some foods back. You must declare them, and if you don't, and you're the one that lets foot and mouth disease, the whole country's going to be on your case. So look, it's good news. Bali is not going to be shut at this point in time. There is no plan to shut Bali off from Australian travel. Yeah, honestly, if you want my advice, come over to Bali, buy a pair of thongs when you get here, and leave them before you go home. Leave them with a taxi driver, leave them with someone else. They only, look, these ones here only cost a couple of bucks. It's nothing. You find them in every shop up and down the main street just about. So if you want to come to Bali and you want to be just a little bit extra careful, just throw a cheap pair of shoes in, or grab a second pair of track shoes or something over here. You don't need expensive shoes. God, I've been here for 7 months. I only wear my shoes probably a dozen times in 7 months, and just because I'm going somewhere climbing up and down mountains or something where it's a little bit harder to get around. But the actual reality of you going anywhere near a cow is pretty limited. If you're traveling up through Ubud, in some of the farming areas, you may come across a little bit of livestock, or you may walk over somewhere where there has been livestock, someone's walked it up on their own feet. So there is a real chance of someone getting a little bit of disease on their foot or on their shoes and transporting it back home. So leave the shoes at home, leave the shoes there, leave them here. Donate them to someone else who might need them. Our feet are most likely a little bit bigger than a lot of the locals' feet, but I promise you it'd be easier to just throw them away and have another pair of shoes on that would be to infect the livestock industry in Australia. Hey, listen guys, the weather's bloody beautiful. It actually had a bit of cloud for the last few days. It's quite nice because it knocked the temperature down a little bit, but the surf is awesome today. There's people learning to surf over the corner there. The lifeguards are out. The beer's nice and cold, the weather's nice and hot, and I'll bet you wish you were here right now because I'm loving it. Okay guys, hey, that's all there is today. I don't want to be alarmist, I just want to let you know things are on the mend up, on the up and up. It's a little bit of hassle, lots of people asking me questions. I'll try to get to your questions when I can. If you got any more, put them in the comments field. Hey, don't forget, give us a subscribe, give us a thumbs up, let us know what you want me to try and do and see and go and have a look at, and I'll do my best. Love your work. Cheers guys, have fun.